this lesson on lexicographic reference. So let's go to start with what is lexicographic reference. And lexicographic reference refers to the proof or data used to support the inclusion, meaning, usage, spelling, or grammatical behavior of a word or an expression in a reference works. In other words, it basically involves documenting the selection of lexicographic data. For instance, it is the evidence that lexicographies rely on when deciding, for example, 1. Whether a word or expression exists in real use. 2. What it means, as well as its grammar. 3. How it is used. 4. How common or current it is, etc. There are three main types of lexicographic evidence: subjective, objective, and mixed lexicographic reference. In this lesson, I will explain subjective evidence. Subjective lexicographic evidence refers to data used in the creation or validation of lexicographic data based on personal judgments and opinions or interpretations rather than objective facts or usage data. It typically comes from the lexicographer's own intuition as a native speaker, or from informant-testing, or from judging the speaker's language, or finally from anecdotal or experiential data. In sum, subjective lexicographic evidence is not falsifiable. Subjective evidence comes into play in several ways. Here is a list of lexicographic tasks that may be connected with subjective lexicographic evidence, although some of them can also be connected with objective lexicographic evidence. One of them is concerned with editorial decisions. And editorial decisions basically comprise which words or expressions to include, which meanings to prioritize, or how to phrase definitions and other lexicographic data. For instance, in DIDES, remember DIDES is the Diccionario Digital del Español, I decided that all combinations or two or more Spanish words should be lemmas instead of run-ons, which is the decision typically adopted in current Spanish lexicography. Another decision is concerned with interpretations of meanings, with determining the semantic nuances of a word or expression, and this generally involves subjective interpretations. This is particularly true for neologisms, slang words, and terms with meanings that are rapidly evolving. Another decision is concerned with cultural and ideological perspective. The way words are defined or which words are deemed appropriate for inclusion are aspects which are typically based on lexicographers' cultural, social, or ideological biases. Another decision refers to expert opinions, because lexicographers experience their personal insights and use their personal insights into certain topics, and this contributes to the understanding and lexicographic treatment of a word or expression usage and or meaning. This is particularly the case for technical, cultural, or scientific terms. Another decision is related with feedback from users, where the inputs lexicographers receive from the public or specific language communities, and this also determines lexicographers' decisions. For instance, those taken when there is public uproar or public criticism about specific meanings of loaded words and expressions, which are those that have or are supposed to have meaning connotations that are offensive for one or more minorities. In general, we can describe two main types of lexicographic evidence, subjective lexicographic evidence, One of them is introspection and deduction, and I will analyze this in a new lesson that will focus on mixed evidence and how this subjective lexicographic evidence has been used in the compilation of the Diccionario Digital del Español of DIDES. The second method is informant-testing, and this is the method that I will explain in this lesson. Informant-testing is a methodology where data about language is collected from informants, that is to say, from speakers of the language who are questioned about the use of words and expressions. And with these methods, lexicographers test or verify words, senses, usages, grammar data, etc., and they test and verify by consulting speakers or subject matter experts. The data gathered from these informants is then used as empirical evidence, as a kind of empirical evidence for making lexicographic decisions. In general, informal testing helps lexicographers to the following. 1. Confirm actual uses of a word or expression that might not appear in, for example, written corpora. Second, gather regional, dialectal, or sociolectal information. 3. Understand semantic nuances or pragmatic restrictions. 4. Assess frequency, naturalness, or acceptability of a term. 5. Verify attested but rare forms found in historical or field sources. Using informant testing as subjective lexicographic evidence is not inherently negative or undesirable, because it has advantages and disadvantages. Let's go to start with its advantages. One of its advantages is that it permits access to native intuition. It provides valuable insights into how speakers feel about a word or expression, for instance, about its naturalness, connotation, register, or emotional tone. A second characteristic is that it captures non-documented usage. It is especially useful for spoken, regional, or low-resource languages where written corpora are, for example, limited or non-existent. 3. It identifies emerging or fading expressions. Informants can signal whether a word or expression is still used or becoming obsolete, giving so lexicographers real-time linguistic awareness. 4. It reveals social linguistic variation. It helps document, as I said before, dialectal, age-related, or social differences in words that corpora or other sources may underrepresent. 5. It also allows semantic clarifications. Informants can explain shades of meaning, idiomatic usage, or taboo aspects that are hard to infer from text alone. 6. It enhances description richness. The qualitative data adds depth to entries, especially in usage notes and examples. But, as I said before, informant testing also has disadvantages. Here are its main disadvantages. 1. It is subject to bias and inconsistency. This means that different informants may give conflicting or unreliable answers influenced by memory, social factors, or personal attitudes. A second disadvantage is that it has limited sample representativeness. Only a small number of informants are used, and these cannot reflect the full linguistic community, especially for large or diverse populations. 3. Another important disadvantage is that the responses are unverifiable. There is often no way to confirm if what informants say are actually in use, and this use really matches their real linguistic behavior. The fourth disadvantage is that the data they offer depends very much on question designs. Poorly framed questions or leading prompts can skew results. For example, prompting a yes bias. 5. Informant testing is time-consuming and resource-heavy. Collecting and analyzing subjective data from informants requires significant fieldwork, coordination, and interpretation. A sixth disadvantage is that they may offer a very low scientific reliability. Since responses are opinion-based, they lack the empirical authority of, for example, corpus-based or attested evidence. In sum, although informant testing is not much used in lexicography, it is a method that you may know, basically because it has been extensively used for example, cataloging the vocabulary of languages which exists only in oral form. That is something that Atkins and Randell in his book of 2008 reflects on. And an example of this method is explained by Anderson, who illustrates how this method has been used, as well as intuition and deduction, for making dictionaries of languages such as Tunica, which has no native speaker and had only 32 second language speakers in 2017. In short, informant testing is basically a methodology used in combination with intuition, deduction, and sometimes objective evidence, and has been extensively used in dictionary projects such as Dictionary of American Regional English and Green's Dictionary of Slang. Thank you very much.